Welcome to Listen by Gene Ginsberg. This audio experience and podcast is all about social media, digital marketing, entrepreneurship, and interviews with top entrepreneurs in the digital and social space. I'm your host, Gene Ginsberg, digital marketing expert, #1 best-selling author, and award-winning entrepreneur. I will be sharing with you strategies, tips, and tactics on how to grow your business and your social media following. Thanks for listening. Hey everyone, Gene Ginsberg here, and welcome to another episode of Listen by Gene Ginsberg. And I have a returning guest today, which I'm very excited about. Hi Milos, how's it going?
Hi Gene, really good. First of all, gotta thank you, and I gotta say that I'm honored and humbled by the fact that I'm on your podcast. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited that you're back. A lot has changed since our last episode, which was about 3 years ago at this point. And we'll get into the changes that you guys have been experiencing, which I'm sure are all good changes. But before we jump into that, I always like to ask our guests, our first question, just to give some context to our audiences, is tell us about your background.
I'm based in Brno, Czech Republic, and I've been in the VC business since 2014, where me and my partner, the CEO and founder of Ysoft Corporation, we started Ysoft Ventures, a very small venture capital fund here in Czech Republic. Prior to that, I ran the largest startup incubator in the Czech Republic. And prior to that, I was a banker in the United States, actually, for about 7 years. So that's my background in a nutshell.
Excellent. So tell me about the organization now.
So Ysoft Corporation, the mother company of our venture capital arm, is in the print management business, kind of company that made it globally out of Eastern European country. We are operating in pretty much globally, offices in 26 countries around the world, servicing Fortune 500 companies with our print management software and hardware. And in 2014, we basically decided that since the company made it globally and gained a lot of know-how in creating hardware and software business and doing it globally, we decided to, out of sort of patriotic reasons, to invest in Czech and Slovakian companies that want to make it globally and help them with the know-how that we have. That's the main idea behind Ysoft Ventures. So we look for companies that are sort of similar to Ysoft in what they do and how they sell in B2B world, and we invest in them basically.
Gotcha. So just to clarify, so Ysoft, the company, is in the software space. And so it went global, and now you're taking some of those funds and then investing them in a VC, which then in turn invests into startups. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. And we are hardware specialists basically because we have a manufacturing facility here in Czech Republic. So we also manufacture the hardware for some of our startups. The recent changes that we're going to talk about later relate to that we are also moving a little bit from the hardware to maybe the software world because we see less and less startups in the hardware field. But the ones that we have invested are doing great. And like I said, not very many venture capital funds can help with manufacturing and certification and logistics and all of those things when it comes to hardware. It's a hard discipline.
Right, absolutely. So tell us about some of the companies that you invested in as part of the venture fund.
Well, probably the best performing is a company called Savio. They do indoor location services. So if you're like an automotive manufacturer or a large warehouse and you need to digitize everything that's happening inside the space, you put special hardware on these forklifts, people, anything that's moving indoor that you need to manage. They're focusing heavily on automotive. It helps them with their supply chain. So when you have these pallets of goods moving throughout the factory, then you know when you run out, and it automatically tells your suppliers to ship you some more goods. We have a cybersecurity company, Great Cortex. We have a company in the video streaming business that's doing well in the US market, Comprimato. We have a company in waste management business, Sensoneo. They basically make hardware sensors that are inside large trash cans, and they track the amount of trash that's inside, and also logistically navigate the waste management company trucks in large cities to optimize their routes. We have a company called Nanovision that's in electron microscope business. They make special hardware, very expensive piece of hardware that you put on an electron microscope, and it sort of has this needle that works like a gramophone needle that scans the object that it's looking at, and it makes 3D models out of it. So it helps the scientists or whoever works on these objects to review them more carefully. And our most recent investment is a company called Arbo Technologies. That's a company in the arboriculture business. They created a software that scans and sort of analyzes the health of trees, because every tree has its owner, usually municipalities. We are talking about the big trees that are, inside cities. The municipalities and any owner has to take care of these trees so they're not dangerous and look at their health. And usually you have people that come and they measure this tree for all day. And these guys created a software that just basically scans the tree and gives you a quick analysis. So they cut the time down to minutes or seconds instead of days looking at these trees. And then they created this hardware that you put on top of a car, and you can actually drive on the interstate or along a highway, and you scan all these trees at a high speed, and then you provide the report to the city or to the highway organization that takes care of it, that they need to cut these trees or trim them or whatever needs to be done so they don't fall down and cause casualties or on like railways and things like that. So very interesting company. They're sort of turning the arboriculture upside down with their technology, because they don't have any competition. Everybody's doing it sort of manually. So right. Quite excited about that.
Wow, that's a lot of ventures. And actually the tree one sounds kind of interesting, because I always thought about that, like obviously there's a bunch of trees just in my neighborhood, and I'm like, who takes care of these? And like, how do you know the tree is healthy? And when is it time to remove the tree if you have to? So that's an interesting one that most people don't really think about, but it's very important, right? Because I mean, those trees can be dangerous if they're not properly taken care of. So.
Oh, absolutely. And they have an app where you can actually scan the tree and it will tell you whether it's like leaning to one side, and if a thunderstorm comes, that the tree can fall down and things like that. It's very, very interesting.
Yes, that's very exciting. Lots of venture. So one question I always like to ask, since the pandemic started, is how has the pandemic impacted your YSoft or the YSoft ventures? And that could be both negative or positive. I mean, I've seen a lot of companies that have been actually, COVID has had a positive impact on some businesses. And so what has been your experience?
Well, all of the companies in our portfolio have definitely experienced a little bit of a hit when it comes to revenues and doing business. That's obvious. When I look at just the venture capital side of the business, there was a period of time of about 6 months where it was really hard to come across anything into our pipeline, like a new deal to look at, because with the pandemic, they're pretty much all of these startup events that you would go to and pitching events, they all ended and nothing was happening. So right. You don't hear about anybody, and looks like for some time everybody was just at home and not even thinking about maybe starting a business. So it was sort of a very quiet time. And just when we started talking about it, that it's really weird, and I started to talking to other VCs, and they said, yeah, it's the same. We look into our pipeline to maybe do follow-up rounds, but we don't have very many new companies coming up. Then it sort of started slowly picking up, and now in the last couple of months, it has been after the summer, it has been really busy with new deals, and we've been looking at quite a few new technologies. But there's a new problem actually that came up in Europe. I just read an interesting article about it. We have a huge deal with valuations just going out of proportions. We see that in the Czech market, and actually it's being talked about in Europe. And I'm sure this is happening in the United States in a way, but
I was going to say, I think it's happening also in the United States. I think there's just these companies are getting massive valuations, which kind of makes me think that there's some sort of bubble going on.
Right. And, European Union and European Commission has poured some money into the Eastern European countries. So there were a couple of funds here in Czech Republic that have gotten quite a bit of money, like actually a lot of money for the market. And usually when we talk to a company, they already have a signed term sheet by these funds because they have too much money for the market. And that has brought the valuations up quite a bit. And also the VCs are so eager to invest that they are not doing the due diligence properly. They're doing the high valuations and we are more conservative when it comes to this. So there's definitely going to be somebody's going to hit a wall here is my prediction, because we are now doing some follow-up rounds for the companies that are in the portfolio. They're employing, dozens of people. They are making revenue, and they are arguing with Series A investors about the next round, and they are getting the same valuations as the newcomers that have pretty much no revenue. And it's kind of hard for us to swallow, because on one hand, we are on these calls and meetings where companies are fighting for valuations when they're actually doing business. They're selling, they're profitable,
right.
Everything is going right. And then you have these businesses that, yes, they have an MVP, they're starting to do some business, but pretty much no revenues, and they're getting similar valuations. And we lose these deals because we don't want to accept these valuations because
right.
they're in our world and in our space, they're just out of proportions. But it's happening, and I think this is going to burst one of these days.
Yeah, what do you think is going to happen? Is it just you think that the whole industry is going to go down and more the valuations are going to be more in line with what the actual valuation is? Or is it just going to be the newcomers are going to get lower valuations? What do you think is going to be the
Well,
outcome?
I think it's gonna go back to the basics. The old venture capital rule was that if you invest 10 startups, only one of them is gonna survive. And obviously, These funds are expecting all these startups to do well. So once 1 in 10 will do well and actually make it, these funds are gonna take big hits. And obviously, we're looking at actual exit numbers of companies in Europe. And usually it seems to us that the valuations that some of the new companies are getting are sort of based on maybe like US valuations when it comes to exits. And some of the math just doesn't add up to us. So we're sort of watching, we're talking to companies, we're trying to find some middle ground and actually do the deal, but it's been tough, and I see that a lot. And actually, I just read a report that was done across Europe, and they see everything. And now you are confirming that this is happening in the States. So something is going to happen. We have the inflation coming up, obviously in Europe. I'm expecting a burst sometime next year. The partner in the fund, the CEO of Wysoft, he just did an interview for a major newspaper here in Czech, and he's predicting a double-digit inflation next year. And I'm thinking this is going to happen as well.
And how will that impact Wysoft Ventures in the sense of, are you going to slow down on new deals, or what do you think is going to be happening in the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, we have the comfort of we are a small fund, and we are not under huge pressure to invest the money because our limited partners are similar patriots, usually CEOs that have created Czech companies that made it global, and so they went into the fund for the same reason, and it's not huge. So we only work because we're very hands-on and we manufacture for these companies. So we're always going to have between 10 to 15 companies maximum, no huge numbers. So we take great care, with picking our companies. So we're just going to take it easy. We have our I guess, conservative and conservative ways. We just want these companies to make money, and we don't want them to go from financing round to a financing round where you invest money into them and then you're waiting for the next financing round for them to make it. We want them to get into profitability, just what you would expect from a regular business, and that's how we approach this. And every once in a while, these expectations meet on both sides, and it works. So we're just going to do our business the same way we do. We are, watching the trends and watching the valuations and everything, but taking basically taking it carefully.
Yeah, taking a careful view of everything. That makes sense. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, I can see that being just not even necessarily your area, but like even in the US across the board, it just seems that the valuations have been very high. And so it's kind of like that 2008 real estate bubble that everyone was in it. And then it's like, well, they were all very highly valued real estate. And so, of course, we experienced that in 2009 and 2010 and whatnot. So what are some companies that you are looking at that you think are going like just benefit YSOF Ventures, but also just even benefiting like overall, like something that's revolutionary or interesting that you think is going to be coming on the market?
Well, at the moment, we are looking at some. Obviously, I can't say the companies because the competition is very high. But we are looking at some Medicare hardware, some like hardware that checks on all the functions of a human body. That's sort of an interesting discipline we are looking at. And usually it's like a B2B software that increases the effectiveness of companies. We're looking in that field. Oh,
that's an interesting one. I would have, I guess, I don't know if you can speak a little bit more, but what do you mean by effectiveness of companies?
Well, usually you have, there were a couple of companies out of our region that have made it globally. UiPath is one of them, and then you have all these little startups that usually have software that increases the effectiveness of these large tools that companies use to basically become more effective, different RPAs and things like that. So there's quite a few of them in this market, but again, these are usually the ones with the high valuations because of the couple of successful ones. They all come from different fields. We always look at B2B because we only understand business needs. We don't get into the B2C world. That one we don't understand because it's usually purchase decisions based on emotions and things like that. We help businesses to basically work harder. And then global ambitions. And we used to say that we like hardware because we are specialists. So we prefer if it's hardware based. We were also looking at a company that has a revolutionary way of printing on textile that's from the region. That's sort of very interesting. It uses a lot less water and chemicals, and it's very and eco-friendly company. They're very different deals that we are looking at.
Excellent. Wow, that's very exciting things. I love learning about new technologies and new companies that are coming up with ideas for the future. I mean, I feel like there's always so many. And talking to someone like you who actually does this on a regular basis, that actually gets into those industries, those like technologies, and all of those things that can benefit mankind in general or businesses in general. So that's very exciting. Awesome. And then the last question that I usually ask before we wrap up is, what is your prediction for the industry? And that could be specifically your industry or industry that you're familiar with, or it could be self-driving cars, terraforming Mars, robots, whatever is top of mind for you.
Well, the venture capital, like I said, I think we're going to go through some sort of a reset when it comes to the venture capital, because right now, with everybody being scared, everybody's pouring money into real estate, which is driving the money up because there's a lot of cash everywhere. People have money, saved up, so they're looking for different investment opportunities. So it's kind of interesting. When we had really good technologies in 2014, when I was fundraising for the first fund, it was really hard. I remember, approaching hundreds. I think I had like 400 investors that I asked to invest, and only 4 or 5 said yes. So there were a lot of, it was kind of hard to raise money. Now you find money on every corner, but it's really hard to find a good company and a good valuation to invest in. So this all has to reset. So I would hope, I would like if there were more interesting deals and better valuations, obviously.
Right.
And it would meet with the investor needs, that they would have the extra cash to invest. Now everybody is just trying to get rid of cash, and the pressure is piling up, and real estate and everything, and putting it into Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and all of that. People are just throwing money at it, and I'm predicting that there's going to be a huge fall. I was actually a banker in the United States right before the 2009 crisis. I remember I had 2 assistants just printing loan documents because I could not do them fast enough. I mean, people were taking loans like crazy. You did not have to show your income. You just stated your income and you got a mortgage and you bought this and that. And it was just, we couldn't print, loan paper fast enough. And we knew that this was just going to happen. Then I moved back to Europe, and of course it happened, like global crisis. And it's very similar what's happening right now. So hopefully a big reset. I'm kind of looking forward to it, because I have like a personal problem for where it's gotten with people right now and with money, because it's just a little crazy right now. So I'm hoping for a reset and go back to normal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it seems like it's coming, because there's only so much it can last, right? So it's probably going to happen. Right. And sometime in the next year or so, which I guess we'll see what the fallout of that will be. There are a lot of great companies and great startups out there, and so it might be harder to maybe raise funds and maybe raise even a pre-seed round or a seed round in the next 12 months, if that's going to be the fallout of that. So interesting to see where that all lands. So
yeah, and of course, tough times always create better companies. You
True.
Out of the crisis, when somebody comes up with something, it's always a little more, because right now it seems like companies that have sort of mediocre technologies or business models and things like that, they get funding, and the better companies always come out of the crisis. That's what I think.
Right. Awesome. Well, thanks so much. I love to do another episode with you in 6 to 12 months and see where things have shifted based on our conversation today. But thank you so much for being here, Milos from Soft Ventures. And last question is, how can our audiences get in touch with you or the company?
Well, Soft Ventures. Well, thank you very much again. Like I said, have loved the opportunity to be here. YSoftVentures.com. Obviously LinkedIn under my name, all of the good stuff, and some of the companies that I've mentioned, they're all very active on social media, especially on LinkedIn in the B2B business. So we should be very easy to find.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here. Great to reconnect again. It's been a few years. Always love hearing how, changes and how things have been growing for you. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.